All right, so today's Daf Tezvav, that's Daf 15. Okay, is really based off a Mishnah on Daf Yud Gimel. So a Mishnah, okay, hello, hi Aki. We're just getting started. So Daf Tezvav, and Daf Tezvav is really based off a Mishnah on Daf Yud Gimel. Where the Mishnah on Daf Yud Gimel records a machlokes between Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel, okay? That Beis Shammai is of the opinion that a tzoras erva is completely mutter. So that means all 15 cases that the first Mishnah discussed, the Mishnah said, potros tzorosein, v'tzoros tzorosein. We said that any co-wife that they have is completely removed from yibum. And there's no halacha of yibum whatsoever. Beis Shammai completely rejects that. Beis Shammai completely disagrees with that Mishnah, and they hold that there's no such halacha. And the halacha is that the tzoras erva is completely permitted in yibum. Not only, and if we say that she's completely permitted in yibum, that means she's obligated in yibum. Now, Rashi explains that the basis for Beis Shammai is they make a drasha. Beis Shammai makes a drasha from the pasuk that says Losia eishes hameis hachutza liishzar. That so the simple translation is that the wife of the dead brother, the wife of the brother who dies, shall not go outside of yibum and marry a stranger. Okay, so that means it's a prohibition to lav against the yevama from going out and marrying somebody else before instead of yibum or chalitza. Now, Beis Shammai, however, makes a different drasha out of it, and Beis Shammai says lo sia eishes hameitz hachutza, the outside wife. Now, what does it mean, the outside wife? The outside wife means the tzoras erva, the other wife. So the other wife, the tzoras erva, is forbidden to ishzar. Okay, so she's forbidden from marrying somebody else, meaning she is obligated in yibum. So Beis Shammai makes a drasha that lo sia eishes hameitz hachutza, that the tzoras erva is obligated in yibum. So therefore, she's going to need yibum or chalitza. She's in order, and if she wants to marry somebody else, then she would have to go through with chalitza. Now, the Mishnah records that there's really two sides of this machlokes, right? Number one, Beis Shammai is going to hold that she's forbidden from marrying somebody else, right? And the flip side of that is, according to Beis Shammai, she needs chalitza. Now, we know that midrabanan, a chalutza, a woman who had chalitza, is forbidden from marrying a kohen. Now, it's not d'oraisa, okay, because midaraisa, only a grusha, only a divorced woman is forbidden from marrying a kohen. But midrabanan, since a chalutza is somewhat similar to a grusha, because she was forbidden and then she requires something in order to permit her, so the Chachamim said that she's forbidden from marrying a kohen. Now, according to Beis Shammai, she had chalitza. According to Beis Shammai, she had chalitza, and therefore she's forbidden to a kohen. However, according to Beis Hillel, right, there was no chalitza that took effect whatsoever. Okay, there's no chalitza that took effect whatsoever, and therefore she's permitted to marry a kohen. So even if they went ahead and did the chalitza, it's meaningless, and she's permitted to marry a kohen. Okay, so the Gemara now on Daf Tesvav, well, it really starts a little earlier, but the Gemara on Daf Tesvav continues it, and the Gemara asks a question of when Beis Shammai recorded their opinion, okay, and Beis Shammai disagrees with Beis Hillel. So the halacha is that Beis Shammai b'makom Beis Hillel eina mishnah, that Beis Shammai's opinion has no validity whatsoever when they argue against Beis Hillel. So machlokes Beis Shammai Beis Hillel, Beis Shammai is completely invalid. It's written off, and the halacha always follows Beis Hillel. Now the question is, did Beis Shammai themselves accept this ruling? And they accepted upon themselves that even though they were of the personal opinion that the halacha should be one way, right? But they accepted this ruling that the halacha follows Beis Hillel, and they never followed their own opinion. So do we say, and the Gemara is recording, asu or lo asu? Did they do, meaning did they create the halacha according to their opinion, asu? Did they do according to their opinion, or lo asu, that they followed Beis Hillel and they didn't follow their opinion? Okay, so the Gemara is going to try and bring rayos. It's going to try and bring proofs as to whether or not asu or lo asu, whether or not they followed the opinion of whether or not they followed their own opinion or not. Okay, so the Gemara says, and it's really starting. The Gemara is really starting right at the bottom of Daf Yud Daled Amud Beis 14, and the Gemara says that the Gemara says that we have a question. Okay, what is the halacha in this question of Tzaras Erev? And the Gemara says, what should we do if we follow the opinion of Beis Shammai that they're permitted in Yibum, right? But according to Beis Hillel, that they're forbidden in Yibum. Anytime the woman is forbidden from Yibum, she's excluded from Yibum, then we revert back to the fact that she's an Eishesach, right? Then she was married to this person's brother, and Eishesach is forbidden, and it's a Chiyuv Kares. So if we're going to follow the opinion of Beis Shammai, that means according to Beis Hillel, any child born would be a mamzer. So we certainly can't go with that. However, the flip side of that is that if we don't follow the opinion of Beis Shammai, right, and that means that we're going to allow this woman to marry a stranger, to go out and say there's no obligation of Yibum or Chalitza, she's going to marry a stranger without Chalitza, right? So then the Vlad is going to be what we call Pogum. The Vlad is going to be forbidden from marrying a Kohen, because any marriage that's forbidden, any child that comes from that marriage is forbidden from marrying a Kohen, is called a Vlad Pogum, right? So the Gemara says that maybe what we should do is, Rav Yochanan ben Nuri says that maybe we should, there's a way of bypassing this. How are we going to bypass this? Because we'll create a new halacha, a new opinion, right? And we will publicize the halacha that we should go through with Chalitza. Because with Chalitza, we avoid both problems, right? We're not going to allow Yibum, right? We're not going to allow Yibum because of the Beis Shammai's opinion that she's an Eishes Ach, right? And we're not going to allow, because of Beis Hillel's opinion that she would be an Eishes Ach, right? Which would create a Vlad Mamzer, it's a Chiyuv Kares. And we're not going to allow her to marry without any sort of Yibum or Chalitza, right? We're going to require Chalitza to satisfy the opinion of Beis Shammai, right? So the Gemara says that they didn't reach a clear opinion, right? And they didn't reach a consensus on this until Nitra for Hashah, which we say that it means Nitra for Hashah, that there was war that broke out, there was persecution, there was war from the Romans that broke out, and they were unable to convene a Bezdin to make a clear opinion that should be publicized. And therefore, this halacha never became publicized and was never accepted in Klal Yisrael. Now, Rav Shimon ben Gamliel answered him. He said that what you're doing is not proper. Trying to create this halacha that we should require chalitza is not proper. Why not? Because retroactively, any woman who had already, right, gone out and married a stranger following the opinion of Beis Hillel, right, according to you, now they're going to need chalitza, and there's no way to correct that. Okay. Now, says the Gemara, why is there no way to correct that? Let them do chalitza now. Let them do chalitza now. You're right. What happened in the past that they went out and got married, there's nothing we can do about. But for the future, let them do chalitza now, even though she's already married, right? But the chalitza can still take effect from the brother. And then that will satisfy at least for the future. So the Gemara says a very interesting answer. The Gemara says that that we cannot require chalitza because mimasiya gavrayu. If we require chalitza, essentially what we're going to be saying to her current husband is that really when you married her, she was forbidden to you. Right? Now that's going to create a situation where the husband is going to be repulsed by her. He's going to be repulsed by the idea that this is a woman that he really was forbidden to, and he married her. right? And says the Gemara that we have a concept that we can never apply a halacha in the Torah which is going to place people in an impossible situation, which is going to place people in a situation where they will be harmed by this halacha and have no way of fixing it. Okay, so therefore we cannot create a halacha of requiring chalitza because retroactively all these women who had already married, right, are going to be now placed in a situation where they're going to be repulsive to their husbands. Now the Gemara says this would seem to be a proof that we followed the opinion of Beis Shammai, right? That we followed the opinion of Beis Shammai because the Gemara says that the Gemara is saying that what should we do for the women that are already married, right? For the women that are already married, which means we're following the opinion of Beis Shammai, right? So the Gemara says that that we're not really referring to the children, right? The Gemara's initial assumption was that we're referring to the children that were produced from this marriage, right? And we're going to say that l'chora they're going to be mamzerim, right, in the past, right? And the Gemara says that we can't require such a halacha, which will essentially set up the children as being mamzerim. Now, why would they be mamzerim? Only if we're going to take the opinion of Beis Shammai and apply it to its full extent. We're going to take the opinion of Beis Shammai and say that we're going to treat these children as mamzerim. So the Gemara says no. No. What we're doing is that the question at least was that we should follow the opinion of Beis Shammai as a basic chumrah. In other words, it's not going to do any harm. We might as well follow Beis Shammai, right? Because we're going to allow her to marry somebody else. But let's require chalitza because why not? At least we'll satisfy Beis Shammai's opinion as well. And since it's just a simple chumrah, there's no reason not to go ahead with it. And on that, the Gemara said that it's not so simple, right? It's not so simple because by doing this, we're going to create a situation where retroactively they're going to be repulsive to their husbands, and therefore there is harm that comes out. Since there's harm that comes out, we're not going to apply this halacha. Okay, so I want to move on a little bit to a case a little bit down halfway down the case, halfway down the Amud here, and the Gemara says Toshma that there was Maaseh bebito shel Rabbi Gamliel. Okay. That there was a story with a case with the daughter of Rabbi Gamliel, that she was married to an erva. Okay, she was married to someone who would be forbidden, and he died without children. And Rabbi Gamliel himself went ahead and did yibum on the tzara. Okay, so Rabbi Gamliel went ahead and did yibum on the tzara. Okay, now it says the Gemara that Rabbi Gamliel was from Talmidei Beis Shammai. Rabbi Gamliel was a student of Beis Shammai, right? And how could it be that you see that Rabbi Gamliel followed the opinion of Beis Shammai, right? Because he went ahead and did yibum. Okay.
It was Beis Hillel, right?
What?
It was Beis Hillel, no?
What? I'm sorry. What?
Rabbi Gamliel was from Beis Hillel, no? Right? Rashi says.
Oh, I'm sorry. You're right. Right. I'm sorry. Just the opposite. Right. Rabbi Gamliel was a descendant of Hillel, actually. Right. And since he was a descendant of Hillel, it can't be. How could it be that he followed the opinion of Beis Shammai? So the Gemara says that this was an entirely different story. The daughter of Rabbi Gamliel was an islandess. The daughter of Rabbi Gamliel was an islandess. She was a woman who never developed. She never hit puberty. She never developed into a woman, and therefore, we say that her marriage was completely a mekach tos, right? It was a mistake because nobody wants to marry an islandess. She's not capable of having children at all. And had the husband known that she was, right, he never would have married her. Therefore, the marriage never took effect whatsoever, right? Meikara, from the very beginning, the marriage was a mistake, right? And therefore, it never takes effect. And therefore, the tzara is permitted to Rabbi Gamliel because she's not really a tzara. She's not a co-wife. She's not a tzaras erva because his daughter was never really married to this individual. Okay, so now says the Gemara, however, right, this is only the opinion of Amir. The Gemara says, Acherim Omrim, some say she was an islandess. Now it seems like if some say that she was an islandess, that means that there are others who disagree and say that she was not an islandess, right? And according to them, how could it be then that Rabbi Gamliel married her? So the Gemara says that no. We'll offer a different interpretation. One interpretation is that he married her and then he divorced her. Another interpretation is, and this is the one I want to discuss, is that there's the machlokes is yesh tanai bebia or ein tanai bebia, which means that there are three ways that a husband that a man can marry a woman, can perform kedushin. One is kesef, with money or anything that has the value of money, which is the one that we do, right? We use a ring and we perform kedushin with the ring. The other is with a shtar, with a document, and the third is with bia, that a man can have relations with the woman, and that itself should serve as the kedushin. Okay. Now there's a machlokes whether or not that we say automatically if he was makadesh bekesef with money or with a shtar, right? Then if it turns out that there was a t'nai in that kedushin, meaning he married her on a certain condition. He married her on a condition that she's going to give him a certain sum of money, or he married her on a condition that she has no vows that she had taken that he doesn't know about. And then it turns out that the condition is not fulfilled. So then the kedushin is batel. Do we say that's a mekach tos? The kedushin is batel, and it doesn't take effect whatsoever. And retroactively, it takes no effect whatsoever. However, there's a machlokes. Let's say he did kedushin bebia. Okay, let's say he did kedushin through bia. Then, do we say that a condition that he made also takes effect, and retroactively we would say that kedushin is not a kedushin at all? Or perhaps here we're going to say that no, there's a difference. And Rashi says the difference is like this: that we have a concept, ein adam oseh be'ilaso be'ilas nus. A person does not want, okay, that his bia, that he did, these relations that he had, should be outside of marriage. Should be, right, should be what we would call a bias nus, right? It's he's having relations with a woman outside of marriage, right, which is forbidden. He doesn't want that to be the result of his bia. And therefore Rashi says that if he went ahead and did kiddushin through bia, that means that he's having in mind that regardless, even though he might have made a condition, right, he wants the kiddushin to take effect regardless, even if the condition is not met. Because what will happen if the kiddushin will not take effect retroactively? That means that retroactively, the bia, the relations that they had are a bias nus, they're outside of marriage. And he doesn't want that to happen, so therefore he automatically will say that his bia, that the kiddushin should take effect. Now that's the opinion of Rashi. The Ritva and the Rashba quote the Ritva and the Rashba quote a Raivad, okay, and they say as follows: that there's an entirely different explanation for why a Tanai doesn't take effect on a kiddushin of bia, and they say as follows: that the source for this concept that a person can make a condition. How do we know that a person can make a condition, and that condition that he makes, right, can be mavatel the kedushin, right, can say retroactively the kedushin didn't take effect, or if a person bought something, let's say, or sold something on a condition, how do we know that if the condition is not met, then retroactively it doesn't take effect? The sale would not be a sale, let's say. So we have to have a source for it. And the Gemara says the source, okay, is from Tanai b'nei Gad u'b'nei Ruvain. We find in the Torah there's an instance where a Tanai, a condition was made. What condition was made? That the b'nei Gad and the b'nei Ruvain, Shevet Gad and Shevet Ruvain, they approached Moshe and they said that we don't want to go into Eretz Yisrael. We want to take our nachala, we want to take our portion here on Ever Yarden, outside of Eretz Yisrael, on the other side of the Jordan River. And Moshe makes a Tanai with them. What did Moshe say? Moshe said as follows: if you will go and you will serve in the army, meaning you will be part of the army that will go into Eretz Yisrael and help conquer the land, then after the conquering is finished, the conquest is finished, then you will inherit this land outside of Eretz Yisrael, and your request will be fulfilled. However, okay, if you do not fulfill this condition, then you will not get this land, and you'll have to take your portion that you were supposed to get in Eretz Yisrael. Now, there's a number of halachos that we learn out from Tanai b'nei Gad u'bnei Reuven. Number one is we learn out that the Tanai has to be repeated twice, because we find in the Torah that Moshe repeats the Tanai, the condition, 2 times. And therefore, the statement, the 2 aspects of the condition have to be repeated twice. But there's another point that we learn out. And that is the Tanai b'nei Gad u'bnei Reuven is something that is capable of being fulfilled by a shliach. Okay, it's capable of being fulfilled by a messenger, because the Tanai b'nei Gad u'bnei Reuven, they could have had messengers that would go ahead and lead the army. Okay, they could have had others who would do it, and since they could have had others, it's a Tanai that could be fulfilled by a condition. And therefore, we learn out that Tanai can only take effect in an instance of something that could be fulfilled by a messenger. Now, obviously, Bia is not something that could be done by a messenger, right? It would have to be done, right, by the husband, by this person himself who wants to marry the woman. And therefore, says the Raavad, quoted by the Rashba and the Ritva, that since Bia is not something that could be fulfilled through a messenger, that's why it's excluded by Tanai b'nei Gad u'bnei Reuven, and that's why the condition will not take effect at all. Okay. The next case that I wanted to discuss, so the Gemara attempted to bring some other proofs there, and the Gemara brings a case from Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva harvested esrogim, and there's a halacha that of maaser that has to be taken off from fruits that are harvested. Okay, and there is a seder, so there's Meiser Rishon, which is given to the Levi, but then there's something called Meiser Sheni, and there's something called Meiser Sheni and Meiser Ani, okay, which are two different masrot. Meiser Sheni has to be taken by the owner up to Yerushalayim, and it's eaten there in Yerushalayim. Meiser Ani is given to the poor people, and they switch off. They don't apply in the same year. So Meiser Sheni applies in the 1st, 2nd, 4th, and 5th years. Meiser Ani applies in the 3rd and the 6th year. Okay? And Rabbi Akiva went ahead. Now, how do we decide when the year changes? Okay? So how do we decide when the year changes? When do we say that it's now the 2nd year and then it goes into the 3rd year? So the Gemara says, the Mishnah in Rosh Hashanah says that brings a machlokes Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel, whether it's the Rosh Chodesh Shvat or whether it's Tu B'Shvat. Now Rabbi Akiva went and he harvested between Rosh Chodesh and Tu B'Shvat. Excuse me. Now, therefore, what did he do? So it sounds like he wanted to fulfill both opinions. What did he do? He took off Meiser Sheni and Meiser Ani. He took off extra. So he took off Meiser, gave it to the Ani, and he took off Meiser Sheni, brought it up to Yerushalayim, and ate it with the Kedusha of Meiser Sheni. Now, says the Gemara, l'chora, that would seem to be a proof that Rabbi Akiva followed the opinion of Beis Shammai. So we see that Beis Shammai will follow their opinion even in a machlokes against Beis Hillel. So the Gemara says an interesting answer. The Gemara says that...
meaning, how does it help us to prove Asuk Devrehim?
In other words, if
Rabbi Akiva followed both, Rabbi Akiva followed both shittas the Chumrah. He was saying, so what?
Because how could he?
He's not Beis Shammai.
What?
How does it prove the Beis Shammai did Kedevrehim?
Because what we mean to say by Asu Kedevrehim is that they don't disregard their psak. They still held that we can follow our opinion, as opposed to saying that Beis Shammai accepted upon themselves that the halacha follows Beis Hillel, and they completely put their opinion aside. Okay, so the Gemara answer is very interesting. The Gemara says that it wasn't that Rabbi Akiva was following the opinion of Beis Shammai, but rather Rabbi Akiva was unsure what the opinion of Beis Hillel was. Okay, meaning he was unsure what the two sides of the machlokas was. He was unsure whether it was Beis Hillel who said Rosh Chodesh, and Beis Shammai held Tu B'Shvat, or maybe it was the opposite. Beis Shammai said Rosh Chodesh and Beis Hillel held Tu B'Shvat. Now, since he was unsure what the opinion of Beis Hillel was, right, he followed both sides, right, in order to fulfill both possibilities of Beis Hillel. So it's not that he was following Beis Shammai, but rather he was trying to fulfill both possibilities of Beis Hillel. Okay, and the Gemara continues with another case. The Gemara says that recorded in the Mishnah in Sukkah is that Rabbi Shammai himself had his daughter-in-law had a baby, and she was unable to come out to the Sukkah, and so she was inside the house. And Rabbi Gamliel opened up the roof. Shammai opened up the roof of the house, put schach over it, in order to create a sukkah for her. Now, even though we hold, according to the opinion of Beis Hillel, that nashim, that women are peturos from sukkah completely. So it seems like Shammai held of his halacha, even in the face of Beis Hillel. So the Gemara answers that it's not forbidden to follow the opinion of Beis Shammai. It's not forbidden to like Akiva Meir was saying. It's not forbidden to accept a chumrah of Beis Shammai. A person can say that really I'm following the opinion of Beis Hillel, but I want to fulfill the opinion of Beis Shammai also, and it's okay to have a chumrah. However, to do something publicly which is following the opinion of Beis Shammai, that we wouldn't do. That would be forbidden to do. Now, how do we? And therefore, if Shammai went ahead and publicly opened up the roof and to build a sukkah, right, where other people are going to see this, then that should be forbidden for him to do. So the Gemara says that it's not considered publicly following the opinion of Shammai because people who see it can simply say that he opened up the roof in order to bring air into in order to open it up and bring fresh air into the room. And it's not clear, it's not obvious that he's creating a sukkah, and therefore it's permitted for him to keep the chumrah because it wasn't obvious that he's doing the opinion of Beis Shammai. Okay, so the Gemara now goes on to an interesting case. The Gemara says that there was a shokes Yehu Shahosav Yerushalayim. There was a trough that was open, that was in Yerushalayim, that was filled with water. Okay, and that trough is what we would call mayim she'uvim. It's water. That trough counts as a keli, counts as a vessel. Okay, and the water that would be in it would not be valid as a mikvah. However, it was open. There was a small hole that connected it to a mikvah. Okay, that was right next to it. There was a mikvah that was right next to it, that was adjacent to it, and there was a small hole that connected it to that mikvah. So therefore, since the water was connected, that creates a halacha called hashaka, that when you have water connected to a mikvah, then that water becomes kosher also, even if it was mayim she'uvim, it becomes kosher, and it remains, and it's considered a mikvah in and of itself. Now, the Gemara says that there's a machlokes what size this hole has to be. Beis Shammai is and the Beis Hillel holds that this hole has to be only kishfoferes hanod. It has to be the size of a piece that was put in to it's a small piece that was the size of two etzbaos, two fingers. And if you have a hole that's that size, then that creates a mikvah kshera, and that's what we do when in our mikvahs we have a bor that's rainwater that's underneath the mikvah, or I'm sorry, adjacent to the side of the mikvah, and we have a hole in between them, and that allows us to use water from the pipes and have water that's filtered, and that's what makes it kosher for tevilah. Now, Beis Shammai, however, holds that it's only kosher if the wall in between them is nifchas rubo. It has to be open. The majority of that wall has to be open, connected to the mikveh. And what did Beis Shammai do? They went ahead, and they opened it up, right? They went ahead and they opened it up. So, they opened it up to be rove, connecting it to the mikvah. Now, how did they do that? Right? It sounds like they are following their opinion in the face of Beis Hillel. So the Gemara answers that here again, it's not considered obvious that they're following their opinion, because it could be that we would say that why did they do this? They did this because they wanted to increase the volume of the water flowing into this showcase. So they opened it up to add more water to this showcase, not because they were clearly following their opinion. Okay, so I just want to take a step back to clarify this halacha of shfoferes hanod, of connecting a mikveh, water which is mayim she'uvim, to a mikveh to make it kosher to be tovelin. Okay, and the Rambam brings this halacha, okay, that you have to have that any mikveh which connects any mayim she'uvim, any collection of water that connects to a mikveh, becomes kosher to be tovelin. Okay, the Rosh says that this halacha is only true if you have kishfoferes hanod. You have to have the size of two etzbos, a hole the size of two etzbos connecting them. Now, the Shulchan Aruch, bringing down this halacha, he says that he makes a distinction. He says it depends. Okay, if the psul of the mikveh, there are various things that can make the mikveh kosher or pasul. Some of them are d'oraisa, okay, and some of them are only d'rabbanan. So he says as follows. If it's a psul d'oraisa, then you have to have kishfoferes hanod, then you have to have a size of two etzbos. However, if it's only pasul midrabanan, then any hole, any size, right, even kasaira, even a hair's breadth, that's enough to make it kosher. Okay, the Ramah brings that the halacha should be that even in a case of the rabbanan, we're going to be machmir to say that it should be shfoferes hanod. Now, there's the question then becomes, okay, that let's say you connect the two, okay, you connect this bore of the mikveh to the water that's mayim she'uvim, okay, and then the hole gets closed up. So initially it was connected, okay, and then the hole gets closed up. Okay, so the Shulchan Aruch says that it doesn't matter. Once you had this hole that connected the two, so then this halacha called hashaka again, and that means that the water, once the water is connected, it becomes mayim ksherim for a mikveh. It becomes water that's kosher for the mikveh, and therefore, even if you close the hole afterwards, it doesn't matter. It's already a kosher mikveh. It's already a kosher mikveh, and it doesn't matter. The mikveh is kosher to use. Okay, the Shach says that he quotes Rabbeinu Yerucham, a Rishon, and he says that really we should be machmir for this, that it should always be open. However, the Pischei Tshuva brings from the Nod of Yehuda, who disagrees very strongly, and he says that it doesn't have to be open at all, even if it's later connected. Then, even if it's later disconnected, it still remains kosher. Now, the Taz brings a very interesting distinction. Okay, and the Taz says like this. Okay, if the mikveh had 40 sah, it had 40 sah in it, which is the minimum shear for a mikveh. Okay, so then even if that water was pasul, we say that once there was hashaka, it became kosher, and even if the hole is closed up afterwards, it remains kosher. Okay, however, if the mikveh was what we call chaser, okay, the mikveh had less than 40 sah. Okay, so then it's kosher as long as it's connected to a mikveh that has 40 sah in it. As long as you have a mikveh that has 40 sah, so then it's connected, and we just add on. Let's say there's 20 sah in this other board that the people are being tovel in, right? So we say that essentially what we have here is one big mikveh of 60 sah, right? Because it's directly connected to the one that already had 40 sah. So then it's kosher as long as it's connected. However, says the Taz, that once it gets disconnected, okay, then even the Shulchan Aruch would agree that this mikveh is not going to be kosher anymore. And what he's saying is that there's a difference between the two. There's a difference in the lamdas of how we define this halacha. If you had 40 sah, so then you have a mikveh, just as a mikveh psula. A mikveh psula, can become kosher. You do hashaka, it becomes kosher, and then it remains kosher. Okay. However, if you have less than 40 sa, you don't have a mikvah at all. Okay? You don't have a mikvah. Now, if it's connected to another mikvah, then we'll just say it's one big mikvah and it's 60 sa, let's say, right? So then it's kosher because you have a mikvah now. But once it gets disconnected, you no longer have a mikvah at all. So you can't say that, oh, it was kosher earlier and it should remain kosher because you no longer have a mikvah. And even if you had a mikvah kshera, let's say, right, and then you took out some of the water and you have less than 40 sa, so then it's going to become pasul. And this would be the same case, right, and would say that it becomes pasul. Okay. I think that was basically what I wanted to go through tonight. And basically the Gemara really just continues with other cases of trying to prove whether or not Beis Shammai actually followed their opinion in the face of Beis Hillel. And the Gemara goes back and forth, bringing all sorts of opinions for that. But this is what I wanted to go through with for tonight. I think we'll stop here with this.